Hey everybody, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Ash Paulson, and today I'm joined by John Cartwright and our very special guest, Shesez, to talk about Dragon Quest's hero in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate 2 weeks later. So let's get started. Alright guys, so as we all know, the second Fighter's Pass DLC character in Smash Bros. Ultimate, the hero from Dragon Quest, has now been in the game for about 2 weeks, and I know all three of us have had quite a bit of time to go hands-on with him and get some impressions, get some feelings on how we feel like he's playing out in the game's overall balance. So, Shesez, let's start with you. I know you're a huge Dragon Quest fan. How big a deal has it been for you to have Hero in this game? Does he feel faithful to what you were hoping he would be, and how are you feeling about him?
So, first of all, I just want to clarify, because there's going to be people that will rip me apart in the comments. I'm not a huge Dragon Quest fan, but I have been playing a lot of the games recently to kind of catch myself up.
Fair enough.
I love what they did with the character. I love the big sweeping attacks with the swords and everything, and I also appreciate that they try to work in as many magic spells as possible, because I feel like that's as much of an identity as you're going to get out of the hero from Dragon Quest. And how they pulled it off, I think it's a double-edged sword. Oh, no pun intended there, but but you know, the RNG is a little bit concerning, but at the same time, I love the array of spells and how it's implemented into the game as well.
What about you, John?
Yeah, when I first saw the hero, I thought, oh no, it's going to be another Robin kind of character, because I'm not a big fan of how Robin plays. But getting a good hands-on with the hero, actually he's my third most played character now.
Nice.
In all of Smash Ultimate, which is kind of mad. But he is so different to Robin, and that mostly comes from his giant spell list. And when you take away that spell list, the hero isn't actually all that impressive. Like his aerial moves are really slow and really weak, and most of his standard melee attacks are actually they have long build-up times. So if you're a fast character, you can very easily counter the hero. But it's where that magic list comes in that really gives him that edge. And but then again, that's a calculated thing. If you're just spamming those moves, anything can come out. You could like kamikaze yourself, or you could is it Kazang the metal spell? You could do that to yourself.
I think it is. Yeah.
Kaklang, that's it, yeah. And if you use Kaklang and you're like against another hero, they can just stand next to you and keep bringing up their list until they get Metal Slash and just KO you instantly.
Right.
So your spell list has a lot of repercussions, and if you're just spamming it, it can be detrimental. But you can also be lucky, which is kind of like a big thing about Hero, is luck.
Well, you know what's funny is, so like it sounds like you're more leaning into the spells with the character. I like the consistency, so I've been doing like a lot of tooling around with not using the down B pretty much at all. So like I will do the side B and the neutral B, because those are guaranteed spells with guaranteed effectiveness, and I try to work in as much melee movement as possible. But of course, there is that drawback that you mentioned before, where there's so much wind up to almost everything that he does that he kind of gets outclassed unless you're facing another medium to heavy type character. Like, I think the hardest matchups I have are definitely against fast characters that can respond to almost anything that I throw out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sonic is particularly tough, because with the hero, if you're casting a spell, you have to be facing in the right direction for one, and Sonic is so easy to evade that kind of movement, and if you're using any kind of melee attack, he's going to easily counter that. So if you're against Sonic or Pichu or anyone who's really fast, it's going to be pretty tough to come out on top with Hero.
Yeah, especially because, playing against fast characters, you don't have as much time to bring up the command menu and kind of choose at your leisure what you want to, which spell you want to cast. I will say that I've been leaning a little more heavily into Shesez's side of playing Hero, which is I do use the command menu, but I've more been leaning into what I see as Hero's pretty strong physical attacks. Like I don't think we should overlook just how powerful he can be even without those command spells. For example, that back air. It may be slow to come out, but it really has some knockback, and it does a lot of damage. It's a good kill move at decently high percents for Hero. So, and of course, with any of them, there's a chance he'll get a crit. Maybe not with his airs, but with his smashes at least. So he definitely, his moves, his aerials are a bit slow to come out, but they're also pretty strong, especially his back air. And I have to say, his dash attack might be one of the best in the game.
I was just about to say, that's one of the funniest things about the characters. With him, more than any other character in the game, I find myself trying to bait players into a rhythm, a pattern that I can identify and then punish. And one of the greatest moves for that is definitely the dash attack, where at least, although all the moves have a long wind-up, if you can convince yourself that, yes, the player will probably roll backwards at this moment, you can just kind of run right into the player and then start doing the wind-up for the dash attack, and there is a good chance that will KO the player. So I love that. I know that that's kind of like a almost like a mirror move to Link's dash attack, but I liked that dash attack as well, so it's kind of nice to see it in a character that I'm more interested in playing.
Right.
Interesting about Link's dash attack there too, because I've seen quite a few people on Twitter bringing up that a lot of the DLC characters are taking their moves and elements from other characters already in the game. So for instance, Piranha Plant is based on Bowser Jr.'s Clown Car, and Joker takes a lot of his moves from Sheik. And the thing with the hero is, I guess a lot of it is sort of from Robin, but just the actual character himself plays it completely differently in my opinion. And his side special is the Lightning Strike. That takes up, if you charge up all the way, that takes up maybe half of his magic meter. But it can also KO players at 30%. But again, there's also a giant build-up with that, and it's very easy to predict. So I feel like while the hero has a lot of negative elements and a lot of pro elements too, they balance themselves out really well, and that magic meter is kind of at the essence of all of it.
Yeah, I would say, as we all know, as Smash enthusiasts, that the Smash community has a tendency to overreact very quickly, to have a knee-jerk reaction to every new DLC character who's like, oh, they're super broken, super OP, we gotta nerf them like crazy. And I think that public opinion has kind of, at least among the pro and enthusiast community, has seemed to shift back toward the middle in the sense that, yeah, maybe there's some stuff that he can do that's a little broken, it's too good, but all those things require a lot of luck and for things to really go your way in a match. And if they don't, which is just as likely, or perhaps even more likely, then those really OP advantages Hero has kind of dissipate. And I was kind of surprised to see, just recently, I played my first online tournament this past weekend, and I won. I was playing Mega Man, which is great, but I was expecting...
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a nice tournament. It went well, but I was expecting to see 32 heroes at least out of the 64 players. There were 3 heroes and 8 jokers. So it almost feels like the hype around Hero has almost kind of died already, because I think people are maybe starting to figure out that, yeah, he can do some of this really OP stuff out of the gate, but he's not consistent with it.
You know what it was, is MK Leo won the last tournament.
Oh, that's true.
with Joker,
That's
and
why.
so everyone's just like, I'm going to be him too.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be the top player in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's funny is he actually just, MKLeo just won again with Joker, Super Smash Con. He won EVO and Super Smash Con in much the same way. He had to come back from he had to reset the bracket, but he did it. And his Joker is crazy scary.
Interestingly, I find the hero to be a very good counter for Joker. Like, a lot of Joker's moves are range-based. So when you take out Bounce, which is one of the hero's magic moves, that can just that changes the entire properties of how Joker's going to work. So as soon as you get Bounce out, Joker's going to be a lot more close-quarter orientated, and that's when you can bring out some of your more intense spells, like you can get Kaboom out, or you can use, is it Kaslash, the ice one?
Oh, Crackle.
There's so many moves.
It's like Crackle Slash or
Crackle,
something.
yeah. There are so many, so many spells.
Yeah.
That it's hard to remember what all of them are. I'm sure Shesez knows, because he's a giant Dragon Quest fan.
Oh,
yeah.
And
don't test me.
that's an interesting thing to come out too, is we aren't all at the same levels of Dragon Quest fandom. I've played all of Dragon Quest 8, a little bit of 9, and a little bit of 5. But I'm already quite attached to these characters though. Whereas Shesez is someone who's played basically all of them.
Oh, no.
So,
I've made it up to 7 at this point. So I actually haven't even played 8, really. I've played the intro to it. Yeah. So we're kind of almost completing the picture here. Yeah.
I made a terrible mistake. My first Dragon Quest game was 7, and I dropped it because I this is the slowest opening. I'm sorry. I know this is this amazing story JRPG series, but I couldn't get into it. And of course, in hindsight, 7 was the worst one to try to start with. So I totally get that's not Dragon Quest's fault. It's that one game. So I did play a bit of 8, and I played a little bit, like a hair of 9. And then I've demoed a bit of 11 at various shows, like both the original and the S version. So I do believe my first Dragon Quest main experience is going to be 11 when it comes out.
So since we've all kind of done this round table here, I'll just completely clarify. I've completed 1 through 6 in their original format, so I'm very familiar with Erdrick and Solo, 4 and 3 respectively. And I also played about, I'd say, 10 hours of 11 before I found out there was going to be a Switch version, so I just kind of dropped it in favor of that to come out soon. So I am familiar with 11 to a degree. I'm sure there's a lot of twists and turns that I haven't encountered yet, but so it's just 8 that I'm not.
Who's your main fighter then, Shesez? Like, what skin do you pick out of these 4?
Oh, Erdrick, totally. He's so cool. He looks like Goku or Gohan. He also has the voice of Link, and
yeah, that's cool.
And also, the game is just fantastic. So it's just an all-around win right there.
But he does not have a mouse in his pocket, so he's therefore the worst one. The best one is, of course, 8.
Yeah, I know. I guess 8 is more like Yamcha with Puar, but you know, I'm just trying to make the Dragon Ball parallels with each one, but.
I'm still having trouble keeping them straight, but my favorite hero to use is the one that's second in the rotation. So
Erdrick.
Oh, okay, Erdrick. Yeah, he's by far my favorite one in terms of just his visual design. I think he's so cool looking.
Absolutely.
He's very popular online.
Yeah.
I found Erdrick is the most popular choice that you'll bump into. Then it's generally 8. I think people just like Munchie.
That makes sense.
Which is understandable.
And you know what's funny is I don't hate Dragon Quest IV, but the hero in that game just looks like he's wearing pajamas, and he has he also looks like he just came out of bed too with his haircut. So like when I play as him, it's like, yeah, I appreciate your game, but there's Erdrick.
Well, and he's got the weird fins, the weird fin.
He looks like a Zora.
Yeah, he looks like a
Zora.
Zora.
Like a Link's to Past Zora.
I like his hair color, but something about the way his whole image comes together doesn't work for me.
Yeah, he has an aqua look to him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with the Zenithian legacy that he's part of. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I go with Erdrick pretty much every time. I did try out the other characters. I think if I had to pick one other one that I kind of enjoy, I do like the alternate color for 4. And I know it's a reference to a game that I also really enjoy, which is the first game of the series. But also just the color scheme itself is just more visually pleasing to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, they went all out with the fan service with Hero. Just the fact they got 4 different versions of the character in this game with an alt each. I will say, I do think it would have been nice to get, as I understand it, there are female versions of the main character for 3 and 4 at least. And I do think that would have been cool to get some of those in there and have like equal gender representation for the hero. But, you know, apparently wasn't meant to be this time. But I do wish that would have been nice because we have 4 different heroes here.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I also think that there's a color reference to another character from 8. I thought it made sense with the character that it's visually based off of, but at the same time, it's like there's so many entries in the series to try to represent, at least with alternate colors, so you probably shouldn't have double dipped into 8. But
is that Angelo? Is the white-haired?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, that's what.
Yeah, but it makes perfect sense, so I kind of understand. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned the fan service. The one thing that I kind of feel like they're really lacking here is with the stage, they should have had a lot more of the monsters represented. I know that you get the mimic and the slime, but I think that's about it. And there's so many great iconic monsters from the series that would have been great to see represented in that stage. Otherwise, it looks fairly barren. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least the ones that show up as spirits, because you have a nice little collection of enemies that show up as Dragon Quest spirits. Not too many, but a nice little handful that would have been nice to see make cameos in the Yggdrasil's Altar stage. But on that note, other than the lack of monster fan service in the stage itself, how are you guys feeling about Yggdrasil's Altar? Because I have to say, I've really been enjoying playing on it more than I thought I might.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't feel all that fresh to me because it feels kind of like a redo of other traveling stages. I do like the treasure chest twist, but I can't say this is giving me like a crazy feeling like some other Smash Ultimate stages have.
Well, and certainly compared to Mementos.
Exactly. Like this, it does just feel a little bit vanilla, but at the same time, it's so grand and vast. Like just looking in the background, you can see so much going around. Yeah, I just do wish they had a bit more of a twist to it rather than just the treasure chest thing.
Sure.
I love it and hate it. I love, from a competitive standpoint, I actually like to play it without hazards off or changing it to Final Destination or Battlefield. I think it's really fun and, somewhat fair to play, at least from my skill level. So I enjoy going there. I also enjoy stages where there's a lot of color and a good brightness to it. Yeah. So I don't particularly like dark stages where you can hardly see what's going on. So that stage kind of fulfills that wish list for me. Again, the only thing is, I kind of agree with John a bit. The traveling stages thing, it's getting kind of old. I like to see more fresh ideas than that. And also, I just think that there was a much better opportunity to throw in a lot more monsters for that stage, and it's just not there. But otherwise, I do love using the stage because it's one of those rare instances in which I don't have to switch to Final Destination or Battlefield to actually play and enjoy on a competitive level.
Right.
I've got a pitch for you. What if they, instead of doing a stage based on 11, what if they went into 11S where they have that portal room where you can travel back to other Dragon Quest worlds in the 2D sprite form? What if they had a stage like you just keep going in and out of the 10 different Dragon Quest worlds? I guess 11 with 11 in there, but just going in and out of each of those different worlds. That would have been super cool.
Almost like kind of a riff on the Magic Hint idea, where you see like the wormholes
yeah.
open to like different games in the series, which I always thought was really cool. But you know, I do agree with what you said about it being a more, well, of course, if you're like really at the pro level, no stage is competitively viable, except for like 4 of them. But you know, for us, you know, I personally like playing on every stage. Really, the only hazards I don't like are bosses. So like, you know, the Yellow Devil, I hate him. But most hazards I'm pretty happy with, and I do agree that the hazards in Yggdrasil's Altar are perfectly doable. You know, even with the mimics, like it's not like they're an instant kill. Like you have to be on your toes. But I don't think there's anything that's inherently deeply unfair that's going on in that stage.
Do they appear when items are off?
I don't
believe
think
so.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's kind of best of both worlds.
I will say the other thing that kind of hurts the stage, I do like it, but it is unfortunate with the music selection that we only got the MIDI versions of all the tracks, which, again, it sounds like it might be Sugiyama's doing, which is really unfortunate if that's true, but at least we didn't get just 2 songs, period. You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's funny. I am in that camp where like I've seen what Square Enix has done with Final Fantasy VII repped in Smash Brothers, and so from that as a starting point,
Exactly.
I'm like, wow, what a treasure trove of tracks from Square Enix. But then, yeah, of course, if you compare it to something like Castlevania, you still just die on the inside. But
Right, exactly.
Well, the thing is too, Persona also had 2 tracks per game, but they did lots of remixes for that, whereas this is just straight rips from the games, and it is disappointing. But again, this isn't the kind of composer that's going to allow other composers to come in and do different versions of his tracks. He's just very protective about his music, which is unfortunate because I want to hear other people do his music.
I know. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I actually think every Persona track is a game rip. I don't think they remixed anything. I just think that...
Oh, no, they did some new
Did they?
ones.
Oh, I completely didn't realize.
oh yeah, they did. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not as up on Persona music, so that's good to know. I'll definitely go look into that. I will say that, speaking to what you guys said about Yggdrasil's Altar kind of not standing out in terms of other stages, like Skyloft does much the same thing. I think we're going to see it further sidelined when Spiral Mountain comes out, because those two just in general aesthetically look somewhat the same, right? They're these like 2 grassy plain traveling type stages. And I feel like, you know, Spiral Mountain's the one with a lot of hype behind it for, you know, players in the West. So I do feel like it might end up getting a little forgotten once the Banjo-Kazooie DLC comes out.
I probably will agree with you on that. And, you know, already you're seeing signs that there's a lot more love and care put into that stage. Like you saw Bottles and you saw Gruntilda, you know. So, and if there's anything else to it, that's just bonus on top. But it seems there's more callbacks to the actual franchise within the stage itself than the stage that we're handed here with Hero.
Right.
One thing I do quite like, though, is with both DLC characters, their taunts bring out an extra character. So when Joker taunts, he brings out Morgana, and when the hero taunts, he brings out a slime. And I just think that's a really cool detail, and I hope that the other DLC characters kind of have that going on too.
Oh, totally. Like when Sora taunts, will bring out Donald and Goofy. Me too. Yeah. So, John, I know you said that Hero has very quickly become one of your top 3 most played characters, and it sounds like Shesez you're playing him quite a bit too, yeah?
Yeah, as I'm playing him more, I'm starting to see like the disadvantages of the character, and I'm starting to lean back into my my mains. But I played him earlier today. I still try to see the good in the character, and there are a lot of times where things go back and forth with victories online. So it's like, is he good? Is he not good? I can't quite tell. I think it's certain matchups only that I can use this character for.
Yeah, same here. I still need to put a little more time in with him. Of the 3 of us, I've probably put the least amount of time in just because it's very, you know, it's hard for me to get away from Mega Man. Like, he's just who I usually want to play when I'm being serious. But I have forced myself to pry myself away from Mega Man and try some Hero. And I agree. Like, initially it felt like he was just going to be almost like he could be this game's Bayonetta, but even at the time people were thinking that, I didn't want to like jump the gun and be like, oh my god, this character's broken, because again, the Smash community. And I'm glad that I didn't.
Ash, what do you do when Hero uses bounce and you're Mega Man?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me this. Okay, so I'm so glad you asked me this, because I got like at least 30 tweets from fans when Hero came out, like, oh, R.I.P. Mega Man, like Mega Man's done. And I'm like, okay, do you guys realize that Mega Man does have non-projectile moves? Like, obviously,
what?
Right? I know, it's crazy.
Say it isn't so.
Obviously, like, having bounce is a pain in the ass, right? Like, it's super annoying for Mega Man because he has the most projectile-heavy moveset in the entire game. But his aerials are not, like, his forward air, back air, they aren't projectiles. And he's got things like his dash attack. Mainly, he just has to play keep away, and there are things, he can space with his aerials, which is what you should be doing anyway as a Mega Man player, but you can space with your aerials and play keep away until bounce wears off. Now, is that ideal? No, certainly it's a problem for Mega Man, but I got all these tweets from people who were like, oh man, he has a reflector, and I'm like, so does Fox, so does Falco, like, and I've beaten all these characters, like, a reflector is not an automatic, loss for Mega Man, which I don't understand why people think it is. So, I will say it's a bit different in Hero's case because, with characters like Fox and Falco, you can bait people into using their reflectors and then go in for a grab or something. With Hero, it's just up, so there's no baiting to be done, so you just kind of have to play keep away. But this happened to me when I was playing a Hero, and it wasn't the end of the world. He got bounced, and I just kept playing, and I'm like, I didn't fall apart. So I promise people out there, Hero's not an automatic hard counter against Mega Man, but it certainly is a problem.
Sounds like a challenge,
right? But no, I mean, I'm enjoying this character's presence in the game now, especially that we've kind of graduated past the oh my god, he's this game's new Bayonetta, moment. He clearly is not that. Maybe he's got some stuff that could be a little broken, but I have to say, and of course this is based on watching MKLeo, who's the best in the world, but I kind of feel like Arsene might still be a little more busted than anything Hero can do, only because Hero relies so much on luck. Arsene's going to come out no matter what you do, and he usually comes out very quickly, and some of the meter you can gain from the Rebels Guard is crazy. So I almost feel like Joker is still the main force to be reckoned with right now.
You are right. At the same time, though, I have killed players at 0% with Hero.
True.
Like, if I oomph myself and then get a critical hit on my smash attack, they're gone.
Sure, but how likely is that, right?
Right, exactly. It's all very situational,
Yeah.
right? Especially with Metal Slash. Like, how often are you going to use that?
Exactly.
In most cases, you're going to use it against another hero who has accidentally made themselves metal.
Right.
It's very hard to first get a character to be metal, and then be standing next to them while the menu's open with Metal Slash hovered over, and then using that.
Right.
You know what's sad is I didn't even know that's what the property was for that move. I had no idea.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, this is just one of those dummy moves that like you're not supposed to pick.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Nice.
But the thing with the menu is when you're using it, your opponent can see that you're using it too. So if you're waiting to use a certain spell, they can just wait. Like, they can wait you out and counter you that way. So it's not like you're being stealthy when you have this menu out, because they know exactly what you're going to do.
Exactly.
So I think it's definitely not that overpowered.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when you're facing a hero and you're up 2 stock and all of a sudden they manage to throw out like one of those instant kill moves and all of a sudden the tables are completely turned out of nowhere, and it was just because they just did the blind like roulette wheel luck on the magic set.
Right.
So there is that, and I know that's not like a guaranteed win by any means, but like that can be really disheartening when that does happen.
Yeah,
you know,
very demoralizing.
Yeah,
But there's also 1 in 30 chance of them killing themselves.
right. And trust me, when that happens, I laugh.
And I mean, and I have played enough battles to where I've kind of seen things go both ways. Like one time I was playing and the hero got Hocus Pocus and got a mushroom effect, and we all just laughed. It was funny because it's like, oh, suddenly hero's huge and can do a lot more damage. Now, of course, in a hardcore competitive context, that might not be as funny, but we all thought it was pretty funny. And I was not, I was the one who got screwed by it, so and I still thought it was pretty good. But then there was another time where another hero Hocus Pocused and fell asleep. So, and that was funny in its own way. So I do enjoy that element of randomness that hero can infuse into a match. But of course, again, like you guys were saying, if you do get that really bad run of luck, and you just face a hero who can take you down from a lead into, you're up against the ropes, that can be very demoralizing, especially when you think you are in control of a match.
I found that Hero's Recovery is actually quite a good offensive move as well.
It is.
There's this one situation where I was being chain grabbed by a Ness, and he threw me off the edge, he did that thing where he sort of does that combo in the air and pushes you forward towards the edge. And just as I was about to go off screen, I charged up my recovery, and then that tornado just hit him off screen and recovered me back to the stage. So it's actually quite a good way of getting out of combos, and also it does damage, and there's also a giant amount of airtime too. The only problem is it also takes up magic, and I've definitely been in that situation where I have not had enough magic to recover. So that magic management is crucial. And the thing is, if you're not attacking players, your magic doesn't actually refill that fast. It only refills when you're getting melee attacks in.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going up very, very slowly.
Which again, my playstyle plays into that perfectly. But like I am gonna add to that and say that playing outside of the stage is like Hero's bread and butter. I will never ever stay on the stage unless it's to charge up my my neutral B. That's the only time I'll actually stay on the stage. Otherwise, I'm coming off the stage and I'm going to pursue anybody that goes off the stage and smash with the hero. Because you can do so much. You can go almost off to the complete. You can go out off screen, and then you can try to hit the other character, and then you can still recover because the recovery is so good.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, yeah, you can also use the up B to trap people and do a stage spike or something like that. That's something that a lot of players are kind of like anticipating now. But like you can also, just because of how effective it is to use the up B in anywhere on the stage, I just find myself oftentimes just going crazy, like bananas, like going complete like bottom right hand corner of the screen to try to hit someone with a melee attack, and then just use my up B to get back. It's crazy.
Yeah. And she says, how good does a last ditch zoom feel? Like, let's say that you've been hit up far off the edge, you don't have enough magic to recover, you open up that menu and zoom is there, and all of a sudden you just recover like that.
Thankfully,
it feels so good.
It happened one time, and yes, it was the best.
Nice.
And it was one of those moments where I was out of magic to do my up B. But the thing is that when you don't have enough magic to do your up B, your character does a little bit of a lift to be like,
Yeah.
I'm out of luck here. That gives you enough time to do the down B and do the zoom. So if you have it, it's like, wow, what a save. And yeah, it's happened one time. But when it did, I got to agree with you. It was like a magical moment. No pun intended.
I'm sure your opponent hates it.
Yeah, right.
It feels great for you.
Yeah.
Though.
No, I have not had that happen to me personally, although I would love to see it happen. I haven't actually even seen that happen to somebody else. But again, when the stars align and you actually can do that, I imagine it must feel amazing. Speaking of Hero's Recovery, one thing I have noticed, though, one maybe bad thing about it, is that if you're playing against someone who knows what they're doing, it does leave Hero very vulnerable when he's trying to land. And it's very easy to chase that down and get a free hit. So that's
always grab the ledge. Always grab.
Oh yeah. Again, I mean, this is assuming that they're trying to land, but yes, you should always be trying to grab the ledge. But it is definitely one of the more exploitable recoveries I think I've seen in the game. But certainly, again, if the hero you're playing knows what they're doing, as you said, she says, they're just going to go for grabbing the ledge. So, what do you guys think of his final smash? I know I don't know how often you guys play with items versus on, but I think it's pretty sick. Even not being a Dragon Quest mega fan, I think it's basically the Dragon Quest version of Mega Man's final smash.
It's very similar. And in a way, that's maybe a little bit disappointing, because it's so similar to Mega Man's. And I guess if I had that huge history of Dragon Quest, maybe I'd appreciate it more. But I do just kind of think, like, I've kind of seen this before.
Yeah, and other characters too, like Shulk has that.
Right. Yeah. At the same time, then, my preferred online rules are two-stock Final Destination mode and with smashes on. Final smashes on, that
Nice.
is. And so I see this Final Smash quite often, and it does feel good to pull off, and it's a very quick cinematic as well. So it's not obtrusive, and it is fun to see. And it also gives all those heroes that aren't in the game, because of course there are 4 who are represented as fighters.
Right.
But there's a bunch of others that aren't, so it is cool to see them actually make their way into Smash.
Right.
To me, it hurts a little bit, even more so than Mega Man's, because with Mega Man's, it kind of makes sense. It's like there's a lot of these characters with different properties and different heights, and just basically they play completely differently from the original Mega Man, so it wouldn't make sense to have them as alts.
Sure.
But with Hero, there are alts, and so when you see the Final Smash and there are characters that I would have preferred to see as playable, as thankful as I am to have Erdrick and Solo to be playable, it's like you see the second hero and the first Dragon Quest hero, which I felt like would have been an essential one, and there's the 3D model. I can't help but feel every time I see that, like, why can't I play as you? You know, that's the only feeling I get out of it.
I'm sure Ash feels that with Mega Man. Like, whenever he sees all those characters in the background.
But actually, no, I don't. Basically speaking to Shesez's point, because they all have different properties from Mega Man and are different heights, different... Like, it wouldn't quite work. You couldn't have X as an alt for Mega Man. It just would not work straight up. Proto Man, maybe, depending on how
Proto Man, though.
Yeah, like, sometimes Proto Man is Mega Man's height, and sometimes he's taller, depending on the game. But I do think there's a strong argument to be made for making Proto Man an echo of Mega Man, who has a shield and maybe a worse rate of fire for his Proto Buster or something. But yeah,
if we can get Ken, we need Proto Man.
Exactly. I think so too. But no, I mean, well, obviously, if Sakurai just wasn't lazy, we could have had 16 hero alts.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the audacity of Proto Man as the 5th DLC fighter?
Can you imagine? That'd be
lose their minds.
Hilarious. But no, I mean, if Sakurai wasn't so lazy,
it.
we could have 16 hero alts with, like, some of the female versions, wireframe hero, just get it all in there. But no, I think the fact that we have the 8 alts that we do is pretty incredible with 4 completely different character models. So
yeah,
I heard Sakurai took a vacation.
Unbelievable.
The audacity of it.
I can't,
right in the middle of the project.
He's got to bring us Banjo. No vacation time for him. Come on.
It's funny. This character in particular, I've always kind of had it in the back of my head, but this one's a huge catalyst for one thing that I'd love to see in a future update, which is to be able to customize who's going to show up as a character in the character select screen, or even with colors as well. But like, I think for Hero especially, like, I would far prefer to see Erdrick's face in the character select screen than 11. I have more of an attachment to the character, and I think that's why they're there to begin with, is because so many people have different tastes and preferences or ideas of what their idea of the face of Dragon Quest is to them. So I would love to see in a future update where, for example, Hero, I can set it to have Erdrick on the character screen. For Ridley, I can have it always be red, stuff like that. So that especially when you go to select the character on your console, you don't have to keep cycling through all the different alts and colors.
To that as well, do you guys ever have that loading issue where you change your alt and the character portrait just disappears?
Oh, it happens to me constantly.
All the time.
And I will say, she says, I love that idea, and if only for Corrin, if only so I can get male Corrin's stupid face off that character select screen. Female Corrin is so much cooler. She has a better design, she sounds cooler, she acts cooler. Like, why would you ever go with male Corrin as default? I don't... Like, male Robin, I get it. He's super cool. And, like, they both have their fans. But I feel like there's a very small percentage of people who actually like male Corrin, right?
Yeah, they're villains.
Yeah, exactly. They can't be trusted. They're the ones who don't pet the dogs in the games where you can pet the dogs.
Criminal.
Well, I guess before we wrap up here, let's just kind of look ahead a bit. How do you guys see Hero ultimately shaping up, kind of turning out in the games, in the metagame, essentially? Do you think he's going to be a strong contender and go on to be really strong like Joker, or do you think he's going to kind of fall off and kind of get lost in the middle of the pack? Like, how do you guys see this going?
I see the competitive community being very upset, and there's going to be clips where they throw controllers at the crowd. but I also think he's not going to be the strongest character in the game. I think he's going to upset some people with what he can do sometimes, but he's not going to be the #1 character. And, he is fun to play as. I think I'm going to continue playing as him. And I don't see him being, the go-to character, though, even though he can do some great stuff.
I think he's going to be very middle of the road, very laughed at in tournaments and stuff like that. I think he's just going to be another Little Mac to the competitive community. I think, in general, he's probably a lot more intuitive and easier to use than Little Mac for people of my skill level. But I do think that once you really start to understand the character in depth, understand everything that's... like, if you look at the menu and Hero's your opponent, you know what all the properties are to every single move. There's not going to be a lot of surprises anymore, and I think that that's going to really hurt every person that goes into a competitive match with Hero. Again, I love that he's in the game, and I love what they did with him, and at my skill level, it's still fun to use him. So I'm still going to probably use him, but with that being said, I'm already starting to lean back towards some of the more surefire bets, which is like Fox and Ridley for myself. So as far as competitive goes, I think that Joker probably will still remain one of the better choices over him.
I have a question for Shesez, and he can't answer this because he hasn't checked. Does Munchie have a full model when you go in Hero's pocket, or is it just the top of the body?
You're right. I haven't checked yet, but I probably should. I would probably wager that he doesn't, and the reason why I would even say that is because I don't think the model moves in any shape or form, right?
I don't think he does. Yeah, it's just static.
Right, very, very static, and so because of that, because there's no properties in which he needs to extend his body outside the pocket, there's less of a reason for there to be a full model. But now you got me curious, John, so I'll probably have to check it out.
Just a feature episode for Munchie.
Yeah, off-camera secrets, Munchie. Perfect.
I'd watch.
Well, I have to say, she says, I pretty much agree with you. I think he's going to remain a competitively viable character going forward, and a strong character for sure, but I don't see him being one of the top characters in the game necessarily. I do think, especially at the pro level, pros value consistency over a one-shot really strong attack that may or may not work, and I don't know how consistent Hero is, specifically because so much of his kit relies on RNG, but the parts that doesn't are still really good, so I do think he's going to remain strong. John, did you want to wrap up with any thoughts of your own, or are you good?
I think I'm pretty much good, Ash.
Cool. Then, before we wrap up, then I am going to put you guys in the spot with a single question. We obviously, none of us know who the 4th DLC character for Smash is going to be. So I want to put it to you guys. John, she says, you have one prediction who you think the 4th DLC character might be.
I know who it is,
You
Ash.
do?
I am 100% certain that they're going to go with Leon S. Kennedy.
Nice.
And there's going to have that dog. He's going to be the final Smash. He's going to rip apart the competition, and El Gigante is just going to smother them all with a giant rock.
I'm in. I love it.
The prophet has spoken. I actually agree. See, the thing is, I try to predict 4 and 5. I think that 4 will probably be Leon, and 5 will be Crash Bandicoot.
All right.
I can see that happening. Crash is a huge icon. I don't have that personal attachment to him, and I think he probably will be in. And I think there's a big likelihood he will.
There's a reason why both those characters are on my list, and that's because up to this point, a lot of the third-party characters, with I think one exception, are huge cultural phenomenons. So with Leon, Resident Evil is Capcom's most successful franchise of all time, so it's weird that there's no Resident Evil rep up to this point, and Leon's a great candidate for it, as well as for the fact that he has weird suplex moves and everything that will fit really well into Smash. As well as the recent remake of Resident Evil 2. He's so relevant, and also a part of cultural phenomena. A lot of people know what Resident Evil is. Even people that don't play as much games as others. And Crash Bandicoot also falls into that same suit where he was so iconic that he was mistaken for Sony's mascot, Sony's Mario, when in fact he was just a third-party character all along. But his relevance made himself known on television. Again, there's a recent resurgence with the Insane trilogy, and it's been doing really, really, really well. So there's too many reasons why both characters should be in Smash, and that's why I think they're going to be my 2 predictions for now. I'd love for it to be Geno, but I don't think so.
One thing I think is kind of weird, though, is Smash Ultimate has a Monster Hunter monster in the single player and also in classic mode.
Right.
And it also has spirits for Shantae. It's so odd that those 2 franchises are represented, but have no actual relevance. It'd be cool if both Shantae and I think mostly Shantae. I'm not really gonna vote for Monster Hunter too much, but if Shantae made it in, that'd be super cool.
My God, if Shantae made it in as the indie rep, I would just lose my mind with hype. I think mainly because I never thought that actually even really had a chance of happening, and I still don't necessarily think it does, but I do admit that there is a chance there. But actually, speaking to your other point, John, that actually is my prediction for the 4th character. For some reason, I'm feeling Monster Hunter. Now, personally, I'm not.
Big.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is Monster Hunter is Capcom's golden goose right now. It's so true that Resident Evil is, its legacy is way more important, and it is the most successful series of all time for Capcom. But right now, it's Monster Hunter, and they want Monster Hunter in everything. And I personally wouldn't be hyped for that at all, but I could see it happening. And yeah.
I don't see it myself.
Okay.
I think that having Rathalos as a boss is probably the biggest send-up that you could possibly do for the series and have it make sense in the context of Smash Brothers. There was the Hunter that was in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Infinite,
and
right.
A lot of people, including myself, kind of saw it as it's kind of like you just kind of plucked out a random avatar to rep the series, and it doesn't really. This doesn't do anything to really excite me.
Right.
it's the monsters that steal the show in Monster Hunter. And so for that to already be represented in Smash, as well as to speak to Shantae, as well as Shovel Knight and stuff like that, I think that's acknowledging that there's a lot of passionate people that would really love to see those characters in Smash, but Sakurai at the same time saying like there needs to be like a cultural relevance that goes beyond online fandoms. So that, I mean, that's a problem. I'm sorry if that's a hard pill to swallow, but that would be why I don't think that they probably would get player slots.
That's fair.
But I've been wrong about so many things. Like Bayonetta, for example, I was dead wrong about that.
Right. Well, and then, look, I won't say that I'm predicting this, but I will say that even the anti-Sora crowd seem to agree that Sora is the last remaining, oh my god, heavy-hitting, what the hell, how did this happen character. So, given that Nintendo seems to be going for those heavy hitters so far, the ones that are just, groundbreaking, like, how did this happen? Sora does seem like he has a chance. I'm not going to go so far as to predict that he'll be number 5, but I do think that if he's either one, it'll be number 5.
What I'm imagining right here is we're going to have, like, the Smash logo is going to cut, there's going to be a dead silence for 5 seconds, and then you'll just hear, gold!
Oh man, there's so many ways I have envisioned that reveal trailer going. We could have a discussion just on that by itself, and it could go on for hours. So, but no, I think we've pretty much covered everything here. So before we wrap up, Shesez, do you want to tell our audience where they can find you?
Sure. If you YouTube search Boundary Break, you should come across my show. It's all about trying to find secrets and discoveries outside of the boundaries in video games. The way I do that is with a program tool that is not usually accessible in any of the games that you would think of. Think of any game that you probably like. It's probably on that list of episodes that I've covered at this point.
Cool. Well, then, sounds good. Well, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to stay subscribed to Game Explained for more on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and all things gaming. Until next time, guys. Bye.